Hello. Well, this way of life, this spiritualism lark is brilliant, and I recommend it to everybody. And the fact is that we can get all sorts of wonderful signs and messages from our loved ones in spirit, friends, acquaintances, family, and it's really brilliant. And we can get that for ourselves. We don't actually have to consult with somebody else. We can develop our own mediumistic abilities, and there's no requirement upon anybody to say they've got to serve the churches or go on theatres or do anything, just for your own peace of mind, really. And certainly, developing as I did as a medium within spiritualism, I didn't realise that, of course, I'd have this wonderful, what can I say, comfort blanket wrapped around me because of it. Nothing to do with, how nice it is to be able to give other people messages and stuff like that, but really, or even to deliver sort of rather wordy uh, teachings and so on from those rather rather more elevated beings than I am in the world of spirit. But yes, I mean, even today, uh, to recap, I did a short chat earlier, and I talked about sort of mediumship and stuff and spiritualism, and talked about platform mediums and trance mediums, and mentioned Doris Stokes and Maurice Barbanel and so on. And then, of course, the machine cut out, the phone, and left me sort of wondering what to do next. Well, anyway, these were the cassette tapes that I had and showed to very different kinds of mediums, but how every medium works in a different way anyway, and there are all sorts of different kinds of mediumship. Which brings me back to, the individual attunement to spirit, and the way in which they can get in touch with us if we're open to that. And for instance, yesterday I looked at this pack of cards that I'd bought from the Spiritualist National Union headquarters, Redwoods, up at Stansted Hall. It's like this. Very interesting. It's got some stuff on the back. The first paragraph I wouldn't give you 2p for, but the rest of it is very good. Yes, and I pulled out a card at random, as we do, and I got this card, which is Frederick Myers, a psychic researcher, spiritualist of repute and renown, and a member of the SPR and so on, Society for Psychic Research, and of course an olden days person. And why is that important? Well, I was thinking about these Bible verses. In the last little chat that I gave this morning, that I thought would go on for a bit longer and didn't. I was actually referring to some Bible verses in the Bible itself, and how spiritualism was there throughout. It sort of embroidered the whole narrative, really, if you just open your mind and look at it like that. And I was thinking about mediums in the Bible. And specifically, I thought about the woman of Endor, because Saul had banished all the mediums out of the country. Well, he thought he did. I mean, you can imagine it. If you know anything about Israel, you'd know that nobody could banish anybody. But, especially not mediums and psychics, of which there are a goodly few, and good ones too. And I've been out there myself, teaching. Now, the thing is this, that I was looking at that story of the woman of Endor, because James VI decided it would be translated as witch. He was the witch finder general, really, all on his own. But yeah, so the thing is that all the mediums and everybody had been banished. They were forbidden to work, although the priests and everybody, they could still cast lots and divine and do all the things that mediums do. But it was different because they did it under the banner of religion. And in actual fact, there is that to my society and to all the spiritualist groups and organisations, really, that as a member of the church, as a member of the religion of spiritualism, you are able to practice the various aspects of spiritualist philosophy and phenomena um, as a medium quite happily without any problems. So in a way, you could say that priesthood extends into the wider family of spiritualists, spiritualist practitioners, as long as they're within the auspices of a church, a religious organisation. I think it's perfectly acceptable. I'm not talking about people that make great wads of money out of it, though I've never actually met a very rich medium. However, we digress, although we don't, because talking about that woman of Endor, the medium, what he wanted to do, Saul, he wanted to speak to somebody about his chances for the forthcoming battle the following day, and unfortunately he was able to be told via the medium, and she was unfortunately, she had to tell him that he was going to be vanquished, that he was going to die, and that they would lose the battle. Anyway, be that as it may, we gloss over that part of it because what happened, you can read that in the Bible anyway. You can wonder about that because I was drawn then to Rudyard Kipling, who had written a poem about it. I thought, yeah, that's right, he did. And when I sort of had a look at that poem, the first verses, all of them were good and positive, and then it was in the last he actually became very anti. And I thought, oh, what a shame. That's a shame. That's strange, because if you know some of his work, a lot of it was very, very spooky. And I found out that his family was actually very spooky, that his mother was known to be clairvoyant, that his sister, Trixie, or Trix Holland, or Mrs. Holland as she passed herself off as, because of the disapproval of various members of her family, and I would say including her brother Rudyard, was an extremely famous medium and was involved with, guess who? Frederick Myers, in cross correspondence. And she actually started the first cross correspondence that was logged with the Society for Psychical Research. She was writing stuff that she was prompted to write down from him, and at the same time, other mediums were receiving information and messages that they were told to write down, which they did. And then when they put it all together, it all made perfect sense, and it was all very, very evidential. So it was wonderful. So she was really a very, very well known. Her name was she was a family of MacDonalds, and they were well known for their psychic abilities and their gifts. And it's so interesting, isn't it, to find out these little things. And Rudyard Kipling's mother was born to a Methodist minister's family, and they were all known to be clairvoyant. So fancy that. So it's all about sort of strange coincidences, if you like. But then even more than that, what happened, I've walked in the room And floating down from my bookcase, I was about to get something out of there, was this picture. And that is, in fact, Lord Toby Jug, as he was known, the head of the eccentric party. And he was the nephew of Screaming Lord Satch of the monster raving loony party, and who was a musician, Dave, actually. And that's what I got told. And what it says is, I'll read it to you. It says, "To Lyn, my pal, keep on rocking, Lord Toby Jug," with a smiley. And keep on rocking. I needed that message when I picked this up off the floor. Well, actually, I had to get Kathy to pick it up for me because I can't do that anymore. But yeah, so you see, it's all very interesting, ties up. And what I wanted to do actually was read you. I promised, I said, oh, I'm going to do some readings, because I talked about the fact that psychic news was a common factor in publishing the words of groups that we work with. Maurice Barbanel's group, headed by Silver Birch, or spokesperson Silver Birch, as he took the name. The original name wasn't Silver Birch, but he thought it was a little bit too trivial, so he anointed himself Silver Birch, as we do. And the group that I work with, who, when I pressed them for a name, again, I didn't have a name for them, but I said, if I'm going to publish what you say in Psychic News, of which I was editor, I said, I have to put a name to it. People like names. So after discussing things between themselves, they came out with Iconoclast. And I thought, something about mediums perhaps would be of interest. And they were asked this, so I'll read it to you, if I may. And the wonderful thing about this lark is you can turn it off if you don't want to hear it. And this was on August 26, 2000. Mediums, must they be born or can they be trained? And they've said this. Well, of course, the answer to that question is both. All are born with a psychic ability. It is the sixth sense with which we are invested, as are other living things. It is something which is said by physiologists to be linked to the endocrine system. However, the psychic manifestation of the physical being is indeed linked to the body etheric, and through that to the spirit within, and through that to the spirit environment without, and through that to individual spirit, and through that to the Great Spirit. It is possible for someone to be attuned to the world of spirit from which they have come in a naturally occurring way, should their physical self or physical environment not preclude it. But usually this ability to receive input from the world of spirit needs to be rediscovered by the ordinary person living in an ordinary kind of life. This faculty of mediumship can be developed in most people who have in the first place a desire so to do, because it is not an easy path. It requires dedication and often self-denial, which is never easy. It is not necessary to either live or have lived the life of a so-called saint in order to be able to become an intermediary between heaven and earth, but it is good that those who embark on such a course should endeavour to improve their innermost selves, to become more selfless, and to wish for the good of others. There are many good teachers now, although some lifestyles are not what we would have chosen nevertheless. If the teaching is good and produces good and spiritually motivated mediums, then the shortcomings of the teachers may be forgiven. We wish you all a more fulfilling and spiritual life and happiness in the spiritual sense of the word. Never forget that to attain the highest, you must set your sights as high as possible. Like attracts like. God bless you all. Yes, and it says it's not necessary to either live or have lived the life of a so-called saint in order to be able to become an intermediary between heaven and earth. Well, that's good news for most of us, isn't it? So you see, it all links up. And Rudyard Kipling himself wrote many books with a supernatural psychic element, and proved in fact that he himself was that too. He was upset more by the fact that people were making money out of grief during and after the First World War, who were not genuine mediums. He was against fraudulent mediumship, and he wrote a book called They, in which he absolutely lauded and applauded, very obviously, his own sister, who he cast in a central role. Obviously, changed her around and that, but of course he had first-hand experience of a first-class medium, genuine medium. And I think that he was probably so grief-stricken in his life by his own personal losses that he didn't want to actually address the fact that they were really gone. I don't think he could cope with that, but he was certainly very, very psychic himself, and it's a pity that he lent himself to the anti-spiritualist brigade, as particularly when his own family was so heavily steeped in it all. And apparently when he was in India, he was party to the Theosophists there, and Madame Blavatsky and so on. Although he was a bit scathing of her, and thought that she was fraudulent. But of course, history has proved that for the most part she was not. This is always a problem, isn't it? In mental mediumship, it can be seen as people who waffle around or make generalities. They're not fraudulent, they're just wafflers. I believe, like my old teacher Rita Boy said to me once, 3 good solid pieces of evidence is all you need. 3 good pieces of a message that somebody can absolutely agree with and understand, and that identifies the person and it is truthful. That's all you need. So, sometimes that's all people get, perhaps. But then if they're on a public platform, they feel the need to sort of pad that out with some more. And that's where you get a problem. And let's face it, people aren't very keen on just having 3 items of good evidence of survival given to them. They expect all sorts. But however, that's another thing. It's what I call there are people that when I was teaching mediumship, I've always said to people, platform mediumship particularly, you will get what we call the recipient from hell. So somebody will sit there with their arms crossed like this, and they're not going to take anything that you can give them. Maybe like Rudyard Kipling. I think as well that you might like to consider, that the fact that our loved ones are still conscious individuals, as they were and are, that they do still love us and they care for us even when we're grieving for them. And I thought I'll do my usual thing as we're just chatting informally, and see what else I can get you to prove to you that they do listen to us, and whatever anybody thinks. And I'll open my book, this little book again, and get ourselves something. And all-seeing God. 'Tis thine to know the springs whence when wrong opinions flow, to judge from principles within, when frailty errs, and when we sin. Who among men, great Lord of all, thy servant to this bar shall call? Judge him for modes of faith, thy foe, and doom him to the realms of woe. Who with another's eyes can read, or worship by another's creed? Trusting thy grace we form our own, and bow to thy commands alone. If wrong, correct, accept if right, while faithful we improve our light, condemning none, but zealous still, to learn and follow all thy will. I think that's very, very nice. And there's another bit that I'm drawn to. O thou who dries the mourner's tear, how dark the world would be, if when deceived and wounded here, we could not fly to thee. But thou wilt heal the wounded heart, which like the plants that throw their fragrance from the blemished part, breathes sweetness out of woe. When joy no longer soothes nor cheers, and even the hope that threw a moment's sparkle o'er our tears is dimmed and vanished too. O who would bear life's stormy doom, did not thy dove of love come brightly wafting through the gloom our peace branch from above? Then sorrow, touched by thee, grows bright with more than rapture's ray, as darkness shows us worlds of light we never saw by day. There, amen to that. Well, isn't that lovely? Spiritualist hymn. They're really good words, aren't they? And proves to us that them who know better than us, who are on that other side of life, have been listening to us and caring for us and sending their love to you all. So I'll say goodbye for now. I hope you've enjoyed our little chat. If you don't know what I'm talking about, the first chat, that's on the Facebook page, the one before this one. And I hope that you get a very good next few hours. Bye for now, and God bless you.